Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today is the Rediscover Your Stash Hop. The October product focus is the color orange, not the fruit. And so today we are going to go ahead and create a 12 by 12 layout. I'm going to use a quilt pattern for inspiration. I have these two gorgeous photos and some products from Brutus Monroe, which we'll talk about as I cut them. This Norma's Knitting's Fall Foliage and Driftwood 6x6 paper pad and some dark chocolate brown cardstock. So I'm going to show you the beautiful quilt pattern that I'm going to try to recreate on my scrapbook page today. It's been a long time since I've done a quilt pattern. They are always some of my favorite to put together. So I'm super excited to try another one on my channel today. Here's the pattern we're going to work with. So cute, right? Perfect for a scrapbook layout. As I get creating and kind of get my head wrapped around what I want to do today, I'm going to go through all these papers and choose the papers I want to use on my layout. So I chose the light white pattern from Driftwood. I'm going to choose two of these patterns from Norma's Knitting's, and I'm going to choose two patterns from the Fall Foliage pack. I'm also going to choose another pattern from the Fall Foliage pack because I want to fussy cut some flowers from a couple of these papers for embellishments. So one thing that I truly love about Brutus Monroe's 6x6 paper pads is this. You get 4 sheets of each pattern of paper, which if you are a 12 by 12 scrapbooker is wonderful because there is nothing that can be more irritating than having a 6x6 paper pad, wanting to cut it up, wanting to use it on a scrapbook page, and finding out you only have like 1 or 2 sheets of each pattern because that is just not enough paper to make a big enough impact on a 12 by 12 layout. So one of my absolute favorite things about Brutus Monroe's paper packs, you're getting 4, which is fabulous. So now that I have all of the different patterns chosen that I want to use, it's time to get to work on my chipboard. That's right, we're going to do like a whole 180 because I remembered that parts of my chipboards have to be gessoed and colored and all of that. Okay, so let's talk about chipboard. If you've been around my channel for a long time, you know that I really, as a general rule, always say that I don't like chipboard, that I think it smells funny and that it's awful. And you have heard me say this. I'm not a fan of the chipboard. So Brutus Monroe released these gorgeous kind of laser cut chipboard pieces. Because it's Brutus Monroe and because Christopher on his life promised me I would like them, I went ahead and grabbed a set or 2. And what I've discovered, first of all, is that I actually like chipboard, real chipboard, not the cardboard stickers that many companies say are chipboard, but which in fact, as it turns out, are not chipboard at all, but they're just cardboard. Those are the ones that you can peel the backs off, like the layers of the back off, and they smell funny. They're nasty, right? I still do not like them, but I have come to the conclusion that those are not true chipboard. Those are cardboard. These particular chipboards are nice and thin. They're not super bulky. They're very intricately I can't think of that word. Intricately cut. So, and they're really nice. I have now played with 2 of the sets of chipboard from British Monroe, and I really, really like both of them. They also have this lovely new gesso product, which, you know, gesso is gesso. But this works really well. Super happy with this too. So I'm just adding a layer of gesso to the shadow piece and the top piece of these chipboard pumpkins. Once all of the gesso was thoroughly dry, I'm coming in with Copper Shimmer Aqua Pigments. And I am putting a layer of the aqua pigment down over the gesso, but then I'm going to kind of like swirl my paintbrush around and give it this like marbly look. And it will dry with that marbly look, and it looks really, really cool on the back behind these pumpkins. So you can kind of see here, I'm just kind of like blotting it down. I really like how this turned out. It was really cool. It was kind of a fun little paint technique that was a little bit different, but it really gave the end product some like extra interest and fun. I'm using the Copper Shimmer Aqua Pigment Full Force because I want you to be able to see the color, and I felt like this technique that I'm doing, your end result is not super bold or pigmented. And then to add more water to the aqua pigment to make it more watered down, I really wanted to get as much of the pigment onto these projects as I could. I am painting on a piece of printer paper that's folded in half. I'm doing this for a couple reasons. One, I don't want to touch these pumpkins till they're dry. And I also want to be able to move them out of the way so I can paint the top layer of the pumpkins. For the top layer of the pumpkins, I am using the color Yam and Chestnut and Sage. So Yam is the color I'm going to put on the orange part of the pumpkin. And again, aqua pigments are watercolors, so they are going to dry back. So as bright and bold as that Yam color looks on my glass mat, when I go ahead and start to put it onto the pumpkin, you'll see it's going to tone down a little bit because these are not opaque colors. They are translucent and they will take up some of the white in the background. And then as it dries, it will actually go and dry back a little bit lighter. So there is the Yam. For the pumpkin stems, I'm using Chestnut, which is, I think, my favorite aqua pigment for fall. So they came out with, British Monroe came out with all of their new colors for fall. And this Chestnut is just, it's so good. It's like this beautiful kind of brown, but it has this red undertone and the color is just fabulous. So I'm going to use that to paint the stems. For the leaves, I'm using Sage. Sage is a more opaque watercolor. So some of the aqua pigments have some white in them. And that white will kind of settle to the bottom. So you need to make sure you really don't not shake, but roll the bottles in your hand to really incorporate the white pigment into the watercolor pigment, and then you get this gorgeous kind of more opaque paint that you can use. And I'm going to use the Sage to go ahead and do the leaves, and then I'm just going to set everything aside and let it dry. While the pumpkins dry, I've created a little stopper that I'm going to put onto my trimmer. This is going to make sure that all of the hundreds of squares I'm about to cut are all the same square. So they're all going to fit together nicely on my 12 by 12 scrapbook page. I'm not going to have like funky gaps or things that are crooked or things that don't match up. I did the math. You'll be so proud of me. I did the mathing, and all of the squares I am cutting are 2 3/4 by 2 3/4. That's going to give us the squares that we need for our pattern. It's also going to give us that lovely kind of dark chocolate border around everything. And it's going to look gorgeous. So I'm just going to cut a whole bunch of papers now. Once I have all of the squares cut, I am going to do a corner. So this is where I'm going to get the T-square ruler. I'm going to line everything up. And once I have the first row and then one square down, all lined up, the rest of them come together really easily. I cut some of the white wood grain cardstock. I cut some extra squares so I could do this. I want to make everything as even as possible. And one of the best ways to do this is to kind of layer the patterns on top of each other instead of trying to cut these itty bitty tiny little triangles. This will become more apparent and more necessary when I get to the middle part of my pattern. But for now, you can kind of see what I mean. So I'm just taking that diagonal knitting paper and I'm placing it right over top of the white wood grain. And then I'm going to end up with the kind of perfect squares. My squares are all still going to line up and I don't have to try to cut like a diagonal that matches for both pieces and all of that. I am putting everything down with wet glue. Bruce Monroe's paper does have like that kind of a little bit of a glossy surface, so you do need a wet glue. Some of my tape runners will stick to it, some of them won't. So I just go with my Nuvo Deluxe adhesive to adhere everything down. The hardest part of this design were these middle squares. Because they are supposed to give the illusion of the patterns kind of overlapping and weaving together in the middle. So the 4 middle squares were the hardest, and I just kind of very slowly and carefully went through each square using the pattern that I had off to the side to really follow where I was putting the paper and how it had to be adhered and all of that. And in the end, these turned out so gorgeous. It worked. What I did worked. And the pattern worked. But just if you want to recreate it, just be very mindful of those middle squares. Those were the hardest ones to kind of figure out. Once I had all of the blocks made so that they line up, you can see here, everything worked. Everything looks like it's weaving in and out just like it's supposed to. And I think it turned out so good. I do have some extra squares there, but I'm not even going to worry about those. I put them right back in with all of the other pattern papers and they will make an appearance on other projects. Now I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to use my T-square ruler to make sure everything stays lined up. And I'm going to adhere all of my little quilt blocks onto my 12 by 12 dark chocolate, dark brown pattern paper. Or solid colored cardstock. I'm not sure what kind of cardstock this is, where it is from. It was in my stash and it was the perfect color. It doesn't have a branding strip on it, which makes me believe it is from the cardstock warehouse. Generally speaking, if I don't have a branding strip on my cardstock, that's where my cardstock came from. Once I had all of the blocks in place, my pumpkins were dry. So I am just adhering the more delicate, intricate pumpkin onto its shadow layer. Off camera, I went ahead and fussy cut some of the flowers from one of those pattern papers that I had chosen. And I'm also going to use that same pattern paper to map my photos with. I felt like this real black, bold pattern paper, while it is bold, when you add it as just a little layer underneath these 2 photographs, it kind of makes the photographs pop away from what is a rather busy background. When it came to titling the page, I will be honest, I just did not have the energy to make stickers. I did not have the energy to try to layer up and die cut and glue anymore. I wanted something easy. So I went into my very small stash of letter stickers. I don't have very many, but I found these puffy stickers from Pink First Studio that worked perfectly with my layout. They are that same sagey green that we painted the leaves with. They are also, this same sagey green color is also in some of the pattern paper that I used for the leaves, and it was just a really good contrasting way to pull in a color that wasn't orange. We do this particular layout has a lot of orange in it, right? We have really leaned into our product focus for Rediscover Your Stash, and we have an orange layout. I am going to move these letter stickers around 1,000 different ways because I am determined that my title, Pumpkin Patch Crew, is going to work on top of this pumpkin. While I fidget around with these letter stickers, be sure to check out the entire hop. This is the first video for the Rediscover Your Stash monthly hop. There is tons and tons of orange inspiration ready for you, both on YouTube and on Instagram. And I will have all the links that you need for the hop in the description box below, so you can hop along, say hello, maybe find some new orange inspiration for your next project. I will also leave links to all of the available products that I used on my layout today. Where available, those links are affiliate links. Affiliate links cost you no money to use, but that helps the companies to know that I am promoting their products, and it also provides me with a little bit of a commission that allows me to continue to bring you content on my channel and to continue to work hard to create and all the good things that you love about what I do here. I decided I needed another fussy cut flower, so I quickly fussy cut that little flower, and I'm going to tuck it up in and around my title. Now we just have to adhere everything down. The nice thing about putting your time into a background like this is that this part where you're just gluing and sticking and getting everything into place goes super fast. And yes, I did end up having to use wet glue and glue every one of my letter stickers down onto the page anyway, but at least I didn't have to die cut them. For the last little details on these fun pumpkins, I grabbed a set of sequins from Spiegel Mom Scraps. These are the Peach Fizz sequins, some of my very favorite orange sequins ever. I love this mix so much. It is called Peach Fizz, and I am going to add little sequins to the flowers and to the pumpkins for those gorgeous little details that you all know I adore. And then our layout is finished. Thank you so much for joining me today. Be sure to hop along and say hello to everybody else so that you can see all of the fun inspiration and ideas for how to use the color orange on your next project. Talk to you all again very soon. Bye.